Clerk, call the roll.
Glenn Whitley, County Judge.
Here.
Roy Charles Brooks, Commissioner Precinct 1. Andy H. Wynn, Commissioner Precinct 2.
Here.
Gary Fickus, Commissioner Precinct 3.
Here.
J.D. Johnson, Commissioner Precinct 4.
Here.
Constitutes a quorum.
Thank you. Our invocation this morning will be delivered by Pastor Kevin Smith from the Faith Christian Fellowship Church in Hurst, Texas. After the invocation, please remain standing for the pledges. Thank you very much for being here this morning.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we just thank you once again that we come together to the Tarrant County Commissioners Court, and we thank you for the commissioners here on today. We thank you for the families here, Lord, that taken time to come to their place to meet and have community according to the agenda of this court. Lord, we just thank you once again that we're in your presence, and we thank you that you lead and guide us in everything that we do this day. We thank you for this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Thank you. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Members of the court, we have three agenda announcements for you this morning, and then one general announcement. Just as it relates to the action item, these items are under purchasing. We start with item 8H2. This is an RFP 2014-114. We're going to hold that particular item for 1 week. Also on purchasing, item number 9, which is bid number 2013-120. We're also going to hold that for 1 week. And then also under purchasing, item 13, which is the maintenance of the train chillers and equipment. We're actually going to hold that for 2 weeks. And then finally, members of the court, we do have a work session this afternoon or today, and it will be immediately after closed session, and the work session will be in 504C. This is facilities. You've seen the placards in the hallway. We'll be going directly from the closed session into 504C for that work session. Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay.
Thank you. Court members, you have before you the minutes of our special call meeting of August the 11th and our regular meeting of August the 12th.
I move approval of both.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Mr. Commissioner Fickus, I'm sure you're wanting to vote with us. Yeah. Motion passes unanimously. We have a congratulatory resolution for Doug Hawthorne, who is retiring. He is the CEO of Texas Health Resources, and I would ask for its approval.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Court members, you have before you the consent agenda.
Move for the approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion, a second, to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Mr. Manius.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the court, we have 4 additional items to bring to you this morning. The first is an item which has been developed by Commissioner Johnson. It's an item called Soldiers First. And we're requesting that the Commissioners Court approve this resolution, which establishes this new county initiative. Just very briefly, what it details is that there are certain departments within the county that have lines that people stand in to get service. And what this would be to encourage those elected officials and appointed officials whose lines or whose services are in their department that they would put up some signage, and we've included that signage in the resolution that would allow military personnel that are in uniform to go to the first in line to get service. Commissioner Johnson, do you have any other comments on that?
I have one. We've done a lot of research with various officers through our enlisted personnel throughout the county, and I would like to suggest that we change the soldiers first to armed forces first.
Very good.
That covers all military personnel. So if we could just change the name of that and the wording on it.
We will do
I would
that.
suggest that, and I would move for that approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. And as I understand it, at least to begin with, we're doing that for uniform, for those folks in uniform.
In uniform.
And then potentially somewhere down the line, if we can create a separate line that says
For veterans.
for armed forces or veterans, as long as they've got some sort of an ID, but we're going to at least begin it with the uniformed.
We're going to start with this, and Steve and I are going to go out. We're going to make a visit to the base and let those people know what we're going to do so they can make the announcement to all their personnel.
And I think we can also get that, well, it would be in VETCO. So really so as we begin it at least, it's just for active duty.
Uniform.
It'll be just active duty folks.
In uniform.
Okay, active duty in uniform, yes, sir. Any other discussion at this point?
Yeah, I just want to make sure that we appreciate the other elected officials like Mr. Ron Wright, Ms. Garcia, Mr. Tom Wilder, and other elected officials within Tarrant County for cooperating with this policy and supporting it. Thank you.
And they have all concurred in this plan.
Any other discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Members of the court, a week ago to item number 2, requesting that the court approve the letter of engagement between Tarrant County and Deloitte & Touche to serve as the county's outside auditors for the fiscal year ending September 30, 2014.
Move approval.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Members of the court, on item number 3, we're requesting that the Commissioners Court nominate the Sanger Brothers Building, which is located at 515 Houston Street in Fort Worth, to the National Register of Historic Places.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. This is at the request of, I guess, the owner of the building or the historical.
Yes.
Any other discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Finally, members of the court, on item number 4, we're requesting that the court approve the use of tax-exempt education revenue bonds issued by the Clifton Higher Education Finance Corp. in the maximum principal amount of $65 million to be used by the Uplift Education to finance certain educational facilities which are located in Tarrant County. Those campuses are located at 3700 Mighty Mite Drive and 1801 South Beach Street in Fort Worth, also 1305 North Center Street in Arlington. Just might make a note, this is not something where our Cultural and Education Facilities Corp. actually help finance this. This is one of those situations where it was the debt is going to be sold by a different element, but since work is coming, some of the work is going to happen in Tarrant County, they need the permission from the Commissioners Court to do that work.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Ms. Glenn.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We have several items for the court this morning. The first item, we're asking the court to receive and file the personnel agenda.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
The second item, we're asking the court to approve a waiver of terminal benefits for the tax office. As detailed in your court communique, we have a motor vehicle manager who's retiring at the end of this month with 400 vacation hours. Mr. Wright has requested a waiver effective 9/1. If approved, the net cost to the general fund will be a little bit more than $15,000, including fringe benefits.
Move approval.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Our third item, we're asking for another waiver of terminal benefits, this time for Precinct 4. The Commissioner has an Equipment 4 operator who retired at the end of July with 400 vacation hours. The Commissioner is requesting a waiver of 360 of those hours retroactive to August the 8th. The net cost to the Road and Bridge Fund will be a little bit more than $9,700, including fringe benefits.
Move approval.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
And our fourth item will be presented by Ms. Worthy.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
So I'm here to present the proposed changes to our benefits plans for next year, both for the administrative cost and the premiums for our employees. You have a variety of exhibits, so we'll go through those as quickly as we can. So Exhibit 1 is outlining some changes in the plan design. So the PPO deductible will increase from $300 to $500. These changes that are being developed are expected to result in approximate savings of 3%. The co-pays for United Healthcare Premium Designated Specialists, this is not the PCPs, but the specialists, will decrease from $30 to $25. Okay? And that will be matching the co-pays that we now pay for primary care specialists or physicians under the PPO. For non-premium designated specialists, the copay will increase from $30 to $35, and that will also be the same copay for chiropractic and urgent care services. And urgent care services is similar to like a Care Now or a Concentra clinic or those kinds of things, not an ER type clinic. Additionally, there will be some changes to our pharmacy benefits. There is now called an Express Advantage Network. We will continue to use Express Scripts to provide pharmacy care and our pharmacy benefits. However, they will also have a network that if you go to the pharmacies in that network, you will see additional savings. And some examples of the pharmacies in the network are Walmart, Target, Costco, some of the local grocery stores. The major pharmacies, CVS and Walgreens, are not included, and these are expected to generate cost savings. Additionally, there will be some changes in the management of compound medications. Compound medications are those that are often prescribed by physicians that are creams that you might put on, and some of those are not following the FDA-approved usages, so those are going to be monitored very carefully and will take special approval. Also, the pharmacy will now begin to manage hepatitis C treatments. Those will still be covered. However, they will be managed in a more careful way, ensuring that employees that are, or their dependents that are undergoing that care have had proper testing to make sure that those medications are appropriate. Vaccinations available through retail pharmacies will now be covered, and there will be a zero cost for preventative breast cancer medications and bowel prep medications for colonoscopies. So those are the major changes as of today. The PEBC board is also scheduled to meet next week, and they may have some additional changes, and we would bring those back to you at that time. Additionally, the dental plan, the PEBC dental plan, which is Delta Dental, that plan will have an increased out-of-pocket from $1,500 to $2,000. And with regard to the dependent group life, there's just a clerical clarification. Right now, as you know, we can carry dependents up to age 26, and it, yes, sir?
Going back to the Delta Dental.
Yes, sir.
You said that it was an increase in out-of-pocket. It's not an increase in out-of-pocket. It's an increase in the maximum.
Correct. I'm
allowed.
sorry. You're correct. Yes, I misread that.
So in the past, $1,500 was all you could get from your dental insurance.
Right.
That will move up to $2,000, so it's actually an additional
Thank you.
benefit.
You are correct. So with the dependent group life, this is a clerical correction to show that that coverage is to increase to age 26. So it'll go through the 25th year of the individual. So now we go into our exhibits. So Exhibit B is service providers and administrative fees, and for the most part, we didn't have changes. I will just highlight the changes. I won't go over all of the others. On page 1, number 4, the administrative fee of $2.88 for the employee wellness plan has been added. Okay, and if we go to number 6.
Is that B, are we talking about Exhibit B1 or are we talking?
B1, yes, sir.
B1.
Okay.
At the top, it says 2015 service
Right.
providers. Okay. And so number 4 adds the added wellness administrative fee of $288 per employee per month for active employees, right? And number 6 on that same exhibit shows a decrease in the stop-loss premiums. And so that's decreasing from $24.01 to $22.81. On page 2 of Exhibit B1, there are no changes. On page 3 of Exhibit B1, in the gray box towards the bottom, number 14, these are fully insured premiums for our retiree Medicare-based plans. So the Medicare Advantage, which is our HMO plan, will have an increase of 9%. And then we have 2 senior supplement plans, one with the drug plan and one without. The one with the drug plan will increase by 7%. The one without will increase by 5%. And then we have the add-on program, which is actually the dependents that are carried that don't have Medicare. So they are carried on our PPO plan. Okay. So now we're going to go to Exhibit B2. And this is our PEBC dental plan, and there are no changes. The rates remain the same as in 2014. Exhibit C1, this is for our active employees' medical plan rates. So that top box is the 2014 or our current both census and rates. The bottom box is for 2015. Our current census is 3527. If an employee is to stay on the same plan as they currently are on, for employee only, it will increase by $6. Employee spouse, $20 increase. Employee and children, a $15 increase. And employee and family will be a $23 increase. Now, if employees change plans, so if an employee goes from the PPO to the high deductible, their premiums will decrease. However, if an employee goes from the HSA or the high deductible plan to the PPO, they will have premium rate increases. Okay? We are recommending that the court continue to, or it is included, the $750 seed money for those employees in the health savings plan. So that will be continued for 2015. On Exhibit C2, now this is the matrix group. This is the pre-65 retirees, and they are offered the same plans as our active employees. We have 237 employees that are currently at what we call our matrix group that pay based on their years of service. And then we have a grandfathered group. You might remember we created that matrix in 2005, and it was for anybody that retired after 10/1 of 2005. Well, at that time, we had a group that we grandfathered in. There are still 2 remaining of those individuals that are in the grandfathered group. Okay? And if you'll turn to C2, that is the matrix group premiums. And you'll see in yellow the monthly increases. So, for example, if you look at the 25-year employee, so that's an employee that has 25 years or more service, and that's our largest group. If they stay in the PPO, they would have an $11 increase for the retiree. If they carry a spouse, it would be a $23 increase. If they have children, it would be a $17 increase. And if they carry an entire family, it would be a $27 increase. So that's the pre-65. Now we go to the next C2 exhibit, which is the grandfathered group. And historically, we have increased these by approximately 15%, which is reflected here. Okay. And so if there are no changes, the increases are $66 for retiree only, with spouse $137, with children $166, and with family $172. So now I'm going to Exhibit C3. Now you might remember this is the group that are the Medicare eligible retirees. So typically they're post-65 or have some other reason to be Medicare eligible. It is fully insured programs with United Healthcare. Last year, the court established a policy to apply a 3% soft cap limit to this group. And so these rates are the new rates are listed in the, I guess you would call that a blue box column, and of course the yellow indicates the increases. Okay. And of course, again, that's the senior supplement and the Medicare Advantage, which is the HMO plan. Okay. And then finally, we have Exhibit D, which is our dental and vision plan, and there are no changes for either of these. And I don't know if you want, how you want to approve these, if you want to approve them exhibit by exhibit. We can do that.
I'd move approval of all the recommended changes.
Second.
Any other discussion? Please vote. Thank you very much, Robin.
Thank you.
That doesn't look like Beecham coming down. He decided he didn't want to lose his seat back there today? I guess. He's afraid Early was going to go over and grab it. Don't say it, just stay ahead. There you go. There you go.
Okay, we ready for me now?
Sure.
Okay. We have 5 items for your consideration this morning. The first is RFP number 2014-112. That is HL7 compliant software installation, training, and maintenance for the Public Health Department. We are recommending the award of $58,800 to MDI Solutions Limited. If approved, we're also asking for contract approval.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
The second item we have today is for RFP number 2014-145. This is a brand new contract. This is the annual contract for, this is an annual contract for payroll services for temporary labor for elections administration. We're recommending the award to the primary and secondary listed on your communique. Also, I'd like to note that we had 2 vendors that were deemed non-compliant. The response from LA First Tax and Financial Services was deemed non-responsive for failure to submit the assigned addendum, and response from Superior Talent Resources was deemed non-responsive for refusing to include all positions on the payroll services RFP, most specifically the drivers and the forklift operators.
Move approval.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Our third item is for bid number 2014-148. This is a new annual contract, and this is the annual contract for fuel site repairs and services. This is county-wide, based on a per hourly rate basis plus percentage markup on parts. We're recommending the award to the primary vendors listed on the communique.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Our next award recommendation is for bid number 2014-150. That's for the annual contract for the purchase of truck-mounted telescopic boom hydraulic excavator. This is for all precincts. We're recommending the award to Kirby Smith Machinery, Inc.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
And our last item is the item we bring to you once a year for the medical examiner's office. We're seeking an exemption from competitive bidding for the purchase of drug standards and controls. Again, this is for the medical examiner's office to the vendors listed on the communique.
Move approval. Second.
We have a motion, a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Jack, I looked as hard as I could, and I couldn't find Arkansas listed anywhere in the college poll rankings. Top 25? They're not in the top 25. Yeah.
Were they in that part where others that got votes?
They didn't even get in, they weren't even in the others got votes. So, you're going to have to do a little work there. Are there any appointments today? There being none, then here comes Ann, because we have a bond to approve.
Hello.
Hello.
Yes. As you may know, the Elections Commission unanimously appointed Frank Phillips as our new elections administrator, and he's here.
Where's Frank?
Wave.
Right.
There we go. And today you're tasked with approving the $20,000 bond that is payable to the county judge. I have reviewed it. It is in proper form, and we request the Commissioners Court approve the bond.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Frank, stand up, and this is our new Tarrant County Elections Administrator, so we appreciate you. Congratulations.
Judge, I have already been chastised by one of our colleagues in Denton County for him coming to Tarrant County.
Yeah, he kind of grabbed me too, your buddy Andy. I have successfully avoided Bobby thus far and Judge Horn, but I'm afraid that it's inevitable that I'm going to hear from them. But we're glad to have you. Welcome aboard, and as soon as we get through with our open session, before we go to closed, I'll swear you in, and you can get back to work. And I again want to thank Stephen, for your work in the interim and for everything you've done to kind of keep that department running, and we appreciate you very much. Court members, you have before you the claims, including the addendum.
Move approval of the claims, including the addendum.
Second.
Motion second to approve the claims, including the addendum. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Briefing items, Mr. Manius.
Thank you, Your Honor. We have one item today. This concerns the fiscal year 2015 proposed budget by the hospital district. Mr. Early is here to address the court at this time. As Mr. Early comes up, let me say that we're not seeking any action from the court at this time. We are going to start the budget process as it relates to hospital on September 9th. We will be approving that budget plus the tax rate for the hospital district.
Thank you. I never did see pictures from the show that I was promised.
They're coming.
They're coming.
Yes, I think we do need to congratulate Mr. Early.
He didn't fall out of the cart.
He didn't fall out of the cart, and that's admirable on his part.
I was not an embarrassment to the state of Texas. That was the goal. I didn't want people in Indiana and Iowa to talk about me for 5 years.
But I'll also add that in the Iowa show, his two horses, in spite of his assistance, won both the grand champion and the reserve grand champion for the show, for the Clydesdale show. So that's a pretty good achievement. So congratulations, sir. And
thank you very much.
And I understand that there's a show in Oklahoma.
There is.
And when will that be?
It's on the 18th and 19th of September.
So
y'all can trek up to Oklahoma.
We can trek up there. I was fixing to say we just all get together and go up there together, but that probably wouldn't work very well.
No.
TK's already beginning to sweat.
5 different cars.
But we might go in 3 different cars.
Perfect.
To go up there.
It's in Oklahoma City. 18th and 19th of September. Yep. So, thank you. Thank you very much.
You're going to be driving the little cart?
I will.
Except that it's not such a little car.
No, it's not little.
Ain't
So-
nothing with those horses,
No, sir.
except maybe the
Especially
driver.
feed, and the feed bill is
I
not
saw
one.
them picture on Facebook that your wife posted.
I'm
They
sorry.
look pretty good.
I told her not to, but
That the
I
one with
have
him in his little hat?
no
That's right.
capability.
His little
Thank
hat,
you.
yeah, it was hard to kind of make you out until we
That was the goal.
zoomed in and saw that it was actually you below that big
Yeah,
hat.
that's the goal. Sir?
Are these out at your farm?
They're out there now. Yes, sir.
Now, which farm are you talking about?
Well, we didn't know we had multiples, but
I do not have multiples.
one out west.
Not out way west, he's now just west of Fort Worth.
Yes.
You have smaller
Yes, sir. Smaller.
He, yeah.
Much smaller.
Russell.
Yeah, it's much smaller.
Smaller than your budget.
It is smaller than the budget. To the budget.
To the
Thank
budget.
you very much. What I did want to do is mention a few things that you have to understand about the healthcare industry that I know you read about in the paper, but unless you're in it on a daily basis, is the volatility of healthcare in the last 2 to 3 years. The effects of the Affordable Health Care Act, the movement amongst organizations in the private sector of the hospital world. There's an immeasurable amount of selling and buying and merger acquisitions that are taking place, and that makes a big difference. And that volatility makes it challenging. We are still in the process of seeking a chief financial officer, and we're beginning to review that process. But that's not easy to do in the marketplace in which it is today, because chief financial officers oftentimes stay where they are. We have an interim chief financial officer. I'm very proud of him. His name is Alan Townsend, and he's behind me. He's one of our team members that came today. He is no relation to Steve Townsend. So Alan is here as helping us out on an interim basis. Chris Butts is with him as well. Chris joins us, and Chris has done an excellent job of helping us with our budget. Bill Whitman joins us today. Bill is very stable for our organization, strong for our organization, and does such great work as our chief operating officer. And I'm lucky enough to have a team of that caliber, and that's what makes this budget possible. I also want to thank the board. The board voted for this budget unanimously, and the board does not take that lightly. The board spent a great deal of time debating this. We took an entire budget retreat to go over these, vet these, discuss them. This budget follows what the directives and the design of the board are in some of their key areas and key goals. I also want to thank you as commissioners for allowing us to spend the time with you and go over these issues with you, talk through those in addition to your schedule. You have your own budget, and the challenges that you have with that, spending time with our budget, we appreciate. Last, I would like to thank your staffs, because your staff spent a Saturday with us at the hospital for 5-6 hours going over the details of this budget as well. As Mr. Mania said, this is the start of that process. We wanted to brief you and give individual briefings to you. We want you to look through this. If you have questions, concerns, comments, we'll be happy to take those up as we go through this process trying to figure out what's right. I will tell you that I think this is a fair budget. I think this is a budget designed around some key areas. Access for our patients, which should always be at the forefront of what we're doing. It should deal with quality, and it should deal with safety. And in the midst of that quality and safety, part of that is retaining good employees. Part of that is taking employees that are not performing at the standards that you would expect out of the organization. It's dealing with the volatility of the state of Texas. It's not an easy state to be in healthcare, because we have a variety of issues that take place. We have a large amount of people that come across our borders. We have a large amount of people that are uninsured in the state of Texas. We have a state that finds itself challenging, trying to figure out how to finance various issues in healthcare. So it is a difficult state to work in at times, but it's also an understanding state. We have a Health and Human Services Department that are looking at ways to try to figure out how to provide money to us to take care of that patient base that oftentimes people want to overlook or walk by or not deal with, such as your psychiatric patients or correctional health patients or patients that don't have the means to have much of a strong political voice. So I think this budget well represents that. I'm proud of the budget and what we've done. A couple of items for you, just quickly, and Commissioner Johnson, we're not going to go through every one of these slides. We had, an hour and a half ago, we had 97 slides, and we reduced it, and now I'm going to reduce it even further.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. I had Jack Beecham help me with the 97 slides. By the way, not to make any comment about Jack, but I think Robert did an excellent job in his presentation today. It was superior. Going through the capital budget, a couple items. When we go to new facility renovations, you're going to see an increase there because we put in additional dollars for two new items, looking at clinic expansion in the Northeast, trying to figure out how we deal with that growing population in the Northeast and what we do. We have got planning money and dollars in there to try to look and make an assessment of what the situation is. As you know, we are challenged with our facility there. We have a hospital that is serving as a clinic and is being in a stage of repair, and it's challenging, and we have to figure out what we do, either looking at that facility or other facilities in the Northeast. Also, we have additional monies for looking at what we're going to do in the Southeast and what we're doing in Arlington, Kennendale, Mansfield, and that area to put our first model in place of trying to deal with a medical home. A medical home is nothing new. It's not a new concept. It's a concept that JPS will roll in to provide care in a better accessible way to our patients. It's not creating anything new. It's not necessarily creating a new facility per se, because the facility is secondary to the care that's being offered. We have a variety of things that we will have in there. Also, you have the East expansion, capital carryover. That is something that this court approved 3 weeks ago. It's the space between the pavilion that was built years ago and the parking garage that's next to it. You'll have invasive labs in there and increased care for our cardiology patients, and I think that will serve very, very well for our organization.
And that is different from the East Pavilion expansion?
No, that is the East expansion.
Okay, and then you have an East Pavilion expansion. Is that the two separate projects?
No, one project. I don't mean to confuse you. The East Pavilion project is that space between the pavilion and the parking garage, and that's where those invasive labs and cardiology expansion will be. Same project. Operational statistics, that just gives you an idea of some of the things that are happening. A few notes that I would point out to you. You may be questioning the fact that your main emergency room visits is a decrease from last year. The reason that's a decrease, we hope to always be able to come to you with decreases there. We're projecting a decrease because we're trying to put those individuals in different locations. You have an overutilized emergency department at JPS, just like you have an overutilized emergency department at Parkland, and about 41% of the emergency rooms in Tarrant County are overutilized. If we can get those patients into urgent care, if we can get them into different settings for triage, if we can get them moved properly, if we can get them into our clinics and get them regular visits, they won't be using an emergency room for all their primary care needs. The other issue on there that you see is births are down. I think that number has the potential of changing. The economic climate has made a difference, but also it's a much better competitive market in Tarrant County for births. Baylor's new facility that they put up 2 years ago has been attractive for a lot of people that are having children and going there, so our births are slightly down, and that may change in the future depending on the economic climate, but I know the economic climate has slowed those births down somewhat. Those are just statistics for you to go over. This is one that I think we should spend a little bit of time with, and that's the additional employees that we are suggesting we bring on to this budget. And for your constituents and for this community, I think these are not only defendable, this is what this community needs. The 7 FTE increase that you see for our DSRIP and 1115 waiver projects are employees that are brought onto projects based on performance. If the program improves and there is performance that meets state standards and CMS standards, then the program continues. If those performance standards aren't met, the program does not continue. And the employees know that when they're brought on board to deal with those issues.
Robert, I have a question on that, or just is these 70, their funding comes from the 1115, correct?
Yes.
It's not general revenue funds. This is
1115 waiver fund.
It does not affect your general revenue.
Right. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Progressive care units. We are challenged with this, and we have not addressed this issue in past years because we haven't financially been able to address this issue in past years. We're trying to get our nursing ratio from a 3 to 1 ratio, 3 patients for every nurse. That's important. It's important when you're a patient. It's important when your loved one's a patient, that we make sure that we have the right staffing ratio for nurse to patient. 4 patients, 5 patients per nurse becomes a real challenge. In particularly a progressive care unit, progressive care is one step down from ICU. These are people in great need, great care, and we need to be able to be with them. I'm not going to go through each one of these, but the other one that I will go through is our 20 patient safety assistants. We have patients that unfortunately find themselves in a suicidal type position. We find patients that don't want to abide by the rules of staying in their bed, and they want to take their alarm that causes them to let us know that they're getting out of their bed, and they want to disarm that and find themselves walking around the room in an unsafe condition. We put people in the rooms to monitor them 24/7. Right now, we're doing it at a higher cost by putting RNs in the room. These people are licensed, certified safety assistants to sit in and watch those patients. This is what, unfortunately, we try to avoid at all times, and so do all hospitals, but all hospitals have this challenge, and that is somebody getting out of bed when they shouldn't and falling and creating problems for themselves. Or unfortunately and sadly enough, somebody committing suicide. Those are real tough challenges for us. The last one that I'll tell you about, which is important to each one of your precincts, is the 7 new police officers that we will bring on board. They're designed specifically for our community clinics. We do drives in cars around the clinics. We do them periodically throughout the day. This will take those police officers and allow them to walk through the building. Our goal is to have them there when the clinic opens and when the clinic closes and provide more security. Overall, statistically, JPS is a safe place, but if your car is broken into or you feel that you were encountered by somebody when you closed down the Diamond Hill Clinic, and we give you statistics, it doesn't make any difference. So we want to reduce all potential crime and all potential unfortunate situations where our employees or patients feel uncomfortable in any way. So we're going to add that to our police force. Operating expenses, this is pretty straightforward. Our value analysis team, that's what VAT stands for, has decreased our medical supplies by 2.5%. Those are supplies that we use for various things, joint replacements, hip replacement, the material that we use for that, the equipment that we use for that. We've done very well at trying to reduce those costs. Some costs are increasing. The increase for hepatitis C drug and the brand name for the hepatitis C drug has increased our cost. We do see a high percentage of patients with hepatitis C. We do need to deal with that, obviously. Additional costs in our software program. We now have had Epic live for 2.5 years. We're now finding the need for advancements in it and making sure that we deal with that. On the other page, you saw 6 new employees going to the electronic medical record team to enhance its productivity as well. The public health expenditure was the same as it has been, and we appreciate their conscientiousness to dealing with the budget and how they've approached the situation and in dealing with those. You have a consolidated income statement, which if you have any additional questions when I'm done, I'll be happy to have Alan address any of those that you might have on the consolidated income statement. Your ad valorem tax notice, we are not suggesting, obviously, that you look at any type of an increase for us. That rate stay basically the same, and there are some stats on the tax base that the district has had and what we're looking forward for in the future, and what we're able to do. And that's revenue by source. Just gives you a breakdown of the ad valorem tax, where our DISH and the 1115 waiver money come in, which Mr. Manions referred to earlier, and some of our DISH monies. And you can see that. That's additional information about the tax revenue projected in baseline and the percent of the projected ad valorem tax. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to have the team or myself attempt to answer them here, or we can have individual meetings with you. We'll be happy to do that with you or your staffs in any way.
So
But I
again,
appreciate
we're
it.
looking at a September 9th, so that gives us 2 or 3 weeks to look through this and to get any, and our staff folks have details
Yes,
of-
yes.
from the meetings that they were.
Yes, the meeting that we had, the budget retreat, and if any staff does not have that or needs more, we'll be happy to present that. But all of you had diligent staff taking notes, going over everything, and I'm sure have briefed you all as well.
Any questions at this time?
Your Honor, what you're also going to see on next Tuesday, which is the 26th, and also the following Tuesday, are the 2 public hearings as it relates to the proposed tax rate, not only for the hospital district, but also for the county.
Okay.
I have a lot of questions, about 40 of them. So in consideration for the court's time, I'm going to email you those questions. Hopefully we can get together and address them.
Great.
I just have one quick question. Based on the information that you provided us yesterday, your operating margin from 2013 was $55 million, and then in 2014 it is projected to drop down to $25 million, and then in 2015 it dropped down to $4.7 million. So from 55 million to 4.7 million, that's about a 91% decrease in operating margin. Is that a concern at all, financially?
No, and I'll have Bill, if you want to come up and address the operating budget, I'll have Bill, as our Chief Operating Officer, communicate that to you and why those numbers are what they are. There is a reason for that. And it's a good question. It might be strange if I said that's not a good question, but no, it is a good question.
Now, you went to a seminar that told you to always say it was a good question before you answered it.
Great question.
You were at the seminar.
It just,
It's not a concern because 2013 was the first year that we began receiving district funds, and those funds were based on plans that we submitted to the state, not based on outcomes, not based on any kind of milestones, but plans. So there was an influx of revenue that we anticipated for that year. And as those district projects mature over time, the margins become slightly tighter, slightly closer than they otherwise would on the first year. So the first year reflects an abnormally high amount of excess revenue over expense. The second year, there was a change, which is 14 projected. There was a change in how we accrue some of our expenses. That was a one-time change that was taken to our board last month.
Okay.
And it represented about $15 million. So if you take that accrual methodology away, the overall margin for fiscal year 14 projected is much less than $25 million. So you had that 1 year of substantial increase of funds from the state.
Okay. So you're looking at your operating cost, right? Basically, based on the FY 15 budget, you're expecting a loss of about 16, 17 million from there, right?
From last year, correct.
And then you
Projected.
basically will make up for that loss by the district revenue.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
Okay. So is it,
but you're not budgeting a loss, excuse me, but you're not budgeting
Oh, no,
a loss.
no. If you look at the consolidated income statement, and I don't have it in front of me, and I apologize for that, I think the consolidated statement says we have an operation, hospital operations of around.
Push that back button on the, there's a keyboard there on that deal.
I don't know how to do this stuff.
I'm the technical guy.
Thank you. No, go back.
I think you may have went the, there you go.
There you go. The operating budget, $16.7 million loss that's offset by the $21 million DSRIP. But before DSRIP, there was UPL, obviously. So you really can't say DSRIP subsidizing hospital operations because there was a change in the methodology from pre-DSRIP days to DSRIP days.
So it's the same fundamental revenue, it's just
Yeah,
name-based
yeah.
rebates? Okay.
Absolutely, but DSRIP does provide additional funding to us that we didn't enjoy before, above and beyond UPL. But we really are getting into the meat of that overall program right now because we've got QPIs, quality improvement projects that are being reported and will be funded based on those outcomes.
So that is a pretty long-term, reliable source of revenue?
We anticipate
from
that
DSRIP?
it's another couple of years, and Robert's point was, based on how we perform and how everybody else is performing, the state's going to be hard-pressed to do anything else. We'll see. It's to be determined.
We'll see. Okay.
They went from just giving you money to basically saying you got
Based
to
on
give us
performance.
projects and you've got to give us performance.
Correct.
But there's specific projects, and should those projects go away, so would go the costs associated with those programs.
That's the understanding. I mean, that has to be the way it is. If you put so much money in your infrastructure to support the programs that you say you're going to achieve certain outcomes, and that funding goes away, that infrastructure has to go away as well.
Now, if the funding if the funding shifts like it did from the DSREP to the 1115 waivers, if it shifts back to the DSREP or something else, then at that point, you'll still be getting the dollars, and you'll have to decide
absolutely.
whether to keep those programs.
Yeah.
And you'll just be left more on a, so.
Yeah, but
That's correct.
Excuse me, the way I look at this, and I could be wrong, okay, because I'm not a financial expert, but
Me either.
it looks like we have 189 new FTEs for FY15.
Yes, sir.
70 of them come from the DSREP. So the difference is for the normal everyday hospital operation,
Correct.
not the DSREP, right?
Correct.
And right now, looking at that financial statement, we're basically funding the other 100 and so employees for the regular everyday operation with the net revenue from the DSREP. So if the DSREP programs 2-3 years later go away, if those programs went away, then we would have to come up with additional money to compensate for these additional 100 plus new employees.
Or
Is
eliminate
that-
the services.
Or eliminate them altogether.
Or eliminate the services that are provided by those additional FTEs. But remember, too, this is a change in how we record that revenue. It at one time was recorded as UPL revenue. Now we've separated it and moved it over to the DSRIP side. So it's not a dollar-for-dollar comparison. And Judge, I think you're familiar with that, too, in the way that we recorded UPL funds. It's a little different of a nuance, so you can't just look at that and say DSRIP supporting hospital operations, because if DSRIP didn't exist, many of those $21 million would be over on the hospital side.
It would be over the Medicaid or the DISH or the UPL.
Correct.
I'm with you. Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. I think there's something like 4,600 full-time equivalents. That could be as many as 6,000 bodies. Okay?
I want to thank the court, and to your point, Commissioner Wynn, if the state of Texas or the federal government were to take the DSRIP dollars, the 1115 waiver dollars away, they would cripple the health care of not only this state, but about 35 other states. It would be illogical, and illogical can happen, but to take the money totally away with nothing is probably not likely. It could happen, but they would more than likely move it to a different type program with different type of restrictions and guidelines if the waiver were not to be extended. Historically, waivers are extended. We have a long history in the United States of doing waivers for health care, and they usually are extended. They're usually, though, given new rules and new guidelines. The waiver that California got, which is just ahead of the cycle of us, was just extended. So it's not uncommon to extend them. However, I do want to say, and Bill was quite accurate, those programs would no longer continue to exist in all likelihood. But the chance of going from this money to nothing is not likely, and this would affect all hospitals, not just us. Everybody's receiving those funds. So, point well taken. I also want to, again, thank you all for your diligence that you've given me today, the effort that you had to look through our budget to help us. I look forward to your questions and additional to get you prepared, that you feel comfortable with this budget one way or the other prior to September 9th.
Any other questions at this time?
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you. Thank you.
Your Honor, that's all we have at this time.
Okay, before we proceed to close, I do want to just kind of let the court know that yesterday, basically as a result of a measure that Roger Williams passed in Congress, the Burleson Post Office was renamed for Sergeant William Moody, who is Jeanette Stanley's son, who was killed in Afghanistan last year. Jeanette is one of our employees in our HR department, and so just be aware of that. There was a nice ceremony in Burleson yesterday, and several of our folks were able to be in attendance with Jeanette at that. So with that, then we'll recess our open meeting and proceed to close to discuss items exempted under sections 551.071, 072, 074, 076, and 087 of the Texas Government Code.
Test, test, test. Test, 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 test. Can you hear me now? It's on. Got the green light's on. The green light's still on. Green light's still on. Okay. Okay. All right. Right there. Thank you.
Mr. Phillip, you're making us work extra today? It won't be long, no. You're going to gain. I like pictures. A barrel full of knowledge when you leave here. Well, a lot of pictures.
You don't have 97? You don't have 97?
97 slides?
So we cut it down to just a few less.
Pretty close to it.
It's a third of that. We'll go. We're pretty fast. Those architects, they're real quick to draw.
Go quick.
Yeah. We appreciate that.
Yes, sir. We just went through.
Did you hear Timmy? Timmy.
It looked like Man in Black.
I called him Black
It was Ann Diamond's fault. Kept us so long.
Yes, I was only going to tell you, and I was so fascinated. I know.
We can sit there and talk about that.
They're having a much more interesting day than you all are, apparently.
They were too small. I mentioned it. Yeah. So I'll just, I'm not, no, I'm not. I don't want to look at that.
Well, that's, I mean, that's why I was a little confused about it. Oh, I just feel that, and they got that. Oh, I wonder what that was. I never seen it.
It's very attractive.
It is very.
And quite frankly, I read the stuff again last night. It looks pretty good.
It does. A lot of good information. Architects did a great job.
Yeah, too. Like, well, just weird like that.
I'm gonna hit the fire alarm here in just a minute, see if we can get about half of it.
You know, I walked up. I walked back up.
Did you?
I did. I did. Outstanding. Okay? Outstanding. Thank you. Let's see here. We have a reversal. Who's sitting here, I wonder? Over here. Huh? Oh, we did. We saved some time. In there. Going in there. Go on. You bet. You bet we saved.
You ate it all up. I know.
You bet we saved you some.
I didn't want any damn banana cheese in it.
No, we didn't eat that. We had.
Sure, you had what, Chateaubriand or lobster Birmingham? I was like.
Well, you had a choice of either one.
Both.
No, it came from Corner Bakery. It was really good. Better than that little joint over at the fire station. I hate that place.
That thing you told me about over there, that wedding soup or whatever, that's all I ever eat.
Is that right?
I had to go to Dixie House over there and get a piece of pie. Too late for lunch.
You save your money now. When we go dove hunting, I want you to buy 2 pies.
Two?
$35 pies.
No, I'm gonna get you some pie by myself.
Well,
We'll get some bird cleaners and some pie by.
you need to buy lunch for all of us and the pie.
We'll do the lunch, but
Bring about $150. We can get you out of it.
they want cash down here. I'll raise some money on my campaign account.
Well, I think you should.
I'm good with that.
Food and beverage expense.
What are we doing on the fence? Did we go ahead and, are we gonna go ahead and move forward with it? Okay. No emblem? Okay. I just didn't think you needed those.
You didn't get one of those old plastic hot butters.
Not plastic. Fiberglass. Fiberglass.
I didn't know he was keeping it secret.
Well, we're trying to keep it lightweight because it's up on that balcony.
Be Don Jr.
Yeah, you won't catch me.
Big star.
Won't catch me in that photo.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Sitting there.
Having returned from our closed session, we'll now address the following matters.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Wright.
The District Attorney's Office, item D1, requesting authorization, not D, C1, requesting authorization for the county judge to sign a release that'll give us some money, accident case regarding Lori Loftus.
Move for approval.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Discussion. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Your Honor, we could move to the work session. And Mr. Phillips is going to start this off. Also, I believe that we may have comments from some of the elected officials and department heads on some of these issues. Mr. Phillips.
Good afternoon.
As you have comments, just say yay. I don't have eyes in the back of my head.
Good afternoon. The purpose of this work session is to present to Commissioners Court the findings and the recommendations on the criminal court system, building space master plan, and the space plan for the Belknap Street buildings, which is 200, 300, and 350 Belknap. First, I'd like to discuss the goals of the space plans and then talk a little bit about some of the summary of the space. Then I will introduce Kirk Pardee and Tommy Sinclair with HOK Architects. They will be presenting the proposed new floor plans for the Tim Curry Criminal Justice Center and the 350 West Belknap building. And when they complete, I'll come back up here and talk a little bit about the cost and scope and time of these projects. Now, we've been working our way to this day for the last 9 years. Since 2005, when we were finalizing the scope and the budget for the new civil courts building in the 2006 capital improvement program. It was a must to move the civil courts out of the Tim Curry building so we could provide flexibility and growth space for the criminal courts and the departments in the Tim Curry building. Now, what you'll see today is the results of the efforts of Tracy Pelley working with the HOK Architects and the departments and judges to provide the space for many, many departments. First will be the 20 criminal courts. Also the Criminal Court Administration, which is Greg Shigert's group, District Attorney's Office, District Clerk's Office, County Clerk's Office, Jury Services, Grand Jury, and of course the Tarrant County Bar Association. Now in the 350 building, Tracy and the architects met with the departments that will be moving into that building. That'll be the Justice of the Precinct 5, Sergio De Leon and his staff, Constable Precinct 5, Ruben Garcia and his staff, also the 160 to 165 folks from CSCD, and the court diversion programs. Tracy and the architects also met with Michelle Brown with pretrial release to try to find her some space somewhere in the corrections center. And they also met with support departments like the Sheriff's Office, Building Security, IT, and Facilities Management. Now, in addition to addressing all the space needs of those departments, one of our goals was to prepare the Tim Curry building for its next 25 years. The Tim Curry building's 25th anniversary will be approximately in 17 months from today. That building should have a minimum service life of 50 years or more. The plans that will be presented today will make that happen. Also, the plans presented today will provide the 350 West Belknap building with a major overhaul inside and out and to extend its life another 30 years. The plans we're presenting today will end the life of the old jail building that was opened in 1963. And lastly, the plans that we're presenting today will provide the 200 West Belknap building with a facelift just in time for its 100th birthday.
The 350 Belknap building, we are still in the process of acquiring that building.
That's correct. And, Your Honor, I talked with the city managers on that again, and those plans are still in place, and I suggested to him that we work on a document that formalizes that acquisition for the county and talk about when they'll be moving out of 350.
When do you anticipate we're going to have that completed?
David said that he was going to get his legal staff to start working on it, and I'll try to push for the next 2 months to get that done. I told Mr. Cook that before we could allocate or begin to spend any money to basically do the renovation or the design of the renovations internally, that we needed to have that, and he understood that.
Okay. Now, earlier this year, Judge Whitley instructed me to survey the 20 criminal judges in an anonymous fashion so we could get their individual opinions about their space. Now, we've got that here, and I'd like to thank Greg Shugart and his staff and also HOK Architects for putting the survey together and compiling the results. What we have here is some of the issues, space issues, with the 15 judges that responded. Now, Tommy Sinclair is going to go over all these opportunities with you as he goes through the floor plans here in just a few minutes. Here's the space summaries for the efforts we've been going on for the last several months. We have currently 31 courtrooms, not counting the Court of Appeals, 31 courtrooms in the Tim Curry building today. When we complete renovations, we'll end up with 26 courtrooms. 3 of those will be for future growth. Also, interesting number on here is CSCD. They'll actually be losing 10,000 square feet because we'll be putting them in the 350 building, which the architects can lay out much more efficiently than the space they have currently in the 200 building. Now, also the District Attorney's Office. District Attorney's Office getting 23,000 additional feet, basically because we're providing for future growth for the support groups who will be supporting the 3 future courts. Also, we'll be moving, I believe, 12 narcotics staff from a suburban location as well. And we'll be providing breathing room for functions like the digital media evidence laboratory on one of the floors. Now, as Tommy goes through the floor plans of the Tim Curry building, you'll see in the DA's office areas divisions like the felony division, appeals, misdemeanor, intake, and so on. What you see today on these floor plans is what we end up with. Now, as we were going through the needs assessment earlier this year, Joe Shannon was very nice, and he allowed Sharon Wilson to attend the meetings. Now, Sharon sat pretty much quietly and took notes all the meetings, and yes, you did. And, yes, you did. And as the meetings ended up, she was listening to DA staff and the architects work through their space problems, and she mentioned to me when the meetings ended up that she has several ideas about adjacencies and layouts and such that she'd like to bounce off the architects, but she'd like to do that several months after she's already in office so she can get to know the DA staff and get input from her staff before she does that. That timing will work out great because we do not plan to start design of the interior of Tim Curry building until late 2015. Now, I'd like to introduce Kurt Pardee with HOK Architects and go over the floor plans.
Great. I'm just going to briefly go over the process that we used to get to the floor plans so you all understand what we did. We started meeting, as David said, with all the different departments that are a part of this master plan study, and we started with the 350 Belknap building and then moved on to the Tim Curry building, but we met with each of the departments in each of the buildings, spent some time with them, developed space lists, and then also talked about what their future needs were going to be. Since this is a master plan, we wanted to know, what's your current size and where you need to be 20 to 25 years from now. After we had that information, then we started laying all that out into floor plans for each of the levels of each of the buildings, and did test fits and went back, and showed what we had done to the departments and the groups that we were working with, got their feedback, and then incorporated changes that they requested into those plans, and those are the plans that we're going to be showing you today. Once we had a clear direction on the plan work that we were doing, then we sat down with cost estimators and developed cost estimates for each of the buildings and the amount of effort that we'd be doing on the project. So that's kind of the process we went through. As we got a little bit deeper into Tim Curry building, We also started looking at one of the major issues there, and that's the vertical circulation and how we could add elevators onto that building to make it function better for you. So that's a big part of what you're going to see today as well. And that also impacted Lamar Street, which we'll talk a little bit more in a minute. So that's just the brief summary. Go ahead, Tommy.
Thank you. Slides. Okay. I'll walk you through the Tim Curry floor plans. First, I'd like to start off and talk about the colors on the floor plans, not get into the detail of the space. It's a little difficult to see. The yellow represents public circulation. Orange is staff circulation, which means you would need a card access to enter that space. Red would be in-custody circulation. The red dashed lines around some of the spaces you'll notice represent an area in which we're renovating or touching. And then you'll notice on some of the levels we'll have a red hatch, which would represent future growth within that department. On every level, we'll be upgrading the public restrooms to meet current and local building codes and accessibility standards, so you'll see that also highlighted. So on the basement level, we have the public restrooms being renovated here, and then we have a DA space here and DA space here being renovated. The remainder of the basement level would remain as existing. On the lower plaza level, which is the parking, you'll notice a new elevator bank off to the west side of the building. This is to alleviate the load on the existing elevators. The new elevators would take jurors, staff, and service. This building at the moment does not have a service elevator, nor does it have a staff elevator for non-elected officials. So that would take the load off of these existing elevators, move them out here, which addresses one of the concerns on the judge's survey. This would be the public entry off of the street level through security screening. The rest of the storage spaces on this level would remain untouched. This is the Lamar Street layout. You'll notice the new elevator here on the west side. It encroaches on the existing street, so the county would acquire the street. We would provide parking spaces for sheriff, investigators, and also a service drop-off adjacent to the new service elevator. Control gates on both ends of the street, which would have a card reader access or a camera linked to the sheriff's office to allow access. The upper plaza level, this is the main entry level. Through the main doors, the vestibules would be upgraded to be more stout, address current maintenance issues that we're having there. Jury services mostly remains untouched except for the restrooms and an office space here. And then the new elevators off to the west here allow for jury check-in for when they get their groups together for court. They can go right into these elevators and up to the court floors, which takes that load off of these existing elevators. The remainder of this level would remain as existing. Level 2. We have county clerk space here in a light gray, as well as a break room and evidence storage on the west side of the floor plate. The new elevator bank here. You'll notice now some of the hatch showing up on the floor plans that represents future growth within that department. Those are there. At the east side, we have the grand jury unit, which remains as existing, a renovated entry point into that grand jury unit, and the DA grand jury unit here in the darker gray with their own entry off of the public circulation into the DA grand jury unit. On level 3, we have the district clerk, which occupies most of this floor plate. The new elevators here for staff and service would be able to be accessed. This is a large evidence storage room here with their public counters on the north side of the floor plate. And then the red hatch areas, again, future growth workstations within that department.
Hadn't we talked about putting the DA's office on that floor?
On the third level?
With the district clerk?
They are today.
They are today.
They have the,
I'm sure they'd love to have that in the future.
we certainly could make that happen.
We're gonna have 1,300 square foot less than what we had
I know where you're
today.
going.
Okay.
A good thing to point out is you'll notice when we get up to the court floors that those district clerk spaces will be consolidated onto level 3. Level 4 is district attorney space all throughout here, and you'll see some pockets of offices in the corner here allocated for future growth. So this means when we were going through the programming phase, we found that that person either moved out of that office and was consolidated upstairs or became a different function. On level 5, this is the first court floor. The new elevators would be here, so your jurors coming up after check-in would come into this floor to their courtrooms. You'll notice in the center area here that those spaces that originally were here, there were DA spaces, district clerk spaces, things like that, that were consolidated within our departments, now become more public waiting and also attorney-client conference rooms, which are all these blue squares here, and there'll be 13 on each floor. To the north side, this is a DA space here. And the south, these existing 4 courtrooms and jury deliberation rooms and chambers along the south side here are all for future growth. And I'll talk about these door access, or these card readers on the next court floor.
Let me ask a question. There's, for attorney-clients, discussions on those rooms, where are the witnesses going to be? Witness waiting.
Go up to another floor. They'll still be, currently, what they do, I believe, they bring them in here to kind of little holding here. Now we'll have these card reader doors here, and they'll still bring them in this area and seat right here. Or they could use the client attorney rooms. It's up to the judges and departments how they want to use these rooms here.
So,
And the district attorney's office on witnesses.
Yes, however they want to use it.
go back to the level 5 for a second. The red boxes, again, are your secured, therefore bringing folks up from the basement that are in jail. I mean, that's the holding cell areas, right?
That's the inmate elevator.
Okay, so if
shaft.
they're coming up in that, then where are the attorney-client rooms for those folks? Because you ain't putting them out there in the public. But
Tommy's going to get to that.
they don't have them on this floor?
Tommy's going to get to the 8th floor, and they'll be on the 8th floor.
On the attorney-client rooms, all these closed, and they have doors, right? So every floor now is going to have all these extra rooms with doors. What is the security in those? Are you going to have additional, is the sheriff going to have additional personnel on every floor that just make sure that, people aren't gathering in there and making shanks or?
I believe once we go through we're in the planning process. Once we go through the design process, we'll get down to the nitty-gritty of how we're going to improve the security for those floors. But it could be done with the building systems, could be cameras, it could be personnel.
And again, that kind of goes back to my question. Those attorney-client offices that are out there in the blue, in the yellow public area, are those mostly going to be clients who are out on bond and are not in jail, but the ones that are in jail that are going to be visiting with their clients are going to be back here in some holding area?
And Tommy's going to get to that on the 8th floor.
Yes.
Oh, I can hardly wait.
On the 6th level, this center core area, you'll see, repeats itself on all of the court floors. So now I'll talk about these access doors. We're looking at adding card reader access on all of these points on the back side of the courtrooms, and also there are some existing doors that go into the private circulation there. That would help alleviate some security concerns of people getting in the back halls where the judges' chambers are. On the north side of the floor plate, lawyers' lounge would be relocated to where this auxiliary court was originally. This is a similar layout here. On the south side, we'll be adding the new holding cells here on both sides. These were originally civil courtrooms, so now these will become criminal courtrooms with the holding cells off of the back. The same center layout with the attorney-client conference rooms here and the new elevator bank. And then the criminal court administration spaces, workstations, and offices in the dark gray area here.
So you're not creating those holding cells on the 5th and 6th floors?
They are already there. They're existing.
Go back to the 5th?
Yes, they're still there. On 7 and 8,
Because
those
the
are
civil
new.
courts
Because
that
those,
weren't there, you're going to have to build them.
Right.
yes.
Okay.
This brown area here, this box, is the attorney-client meeting rooms. They have contact meeting rooms. They also have non-contact meeting rooms. So inmates would come up from this inmate elevator from central holding down below into this space.
Okay, if they're going to the court on the other side, how are they going to get there?
That'll be up to how it's managed with the sheriff's office and the judges. We don't have that. The judges, felony judges, when we met with them, they specifically asked for this private attorney-inmate area, and they were willing, Judge Carr was actually willing to give up his courtroom to make this happen. So we've drawn in 8 spaces, like Tommy said, some contact and non-contact. And I've talked a little bit with the sheriff's office, and it'll really be a combination of the sheriff's office, the building security, the jail folks, Bob Knowles, and the judges on how they're going to manage this. But they may bring them up and set them in there, and if it's going to be is it going to be a holding area, or is it just going to be an area where they can sit and talk for a few minutes? That has to be defined. But we do have the footprint for it. As far as how it's managed, and if it ends up being with a full-blown holding cell with fixtures, smoke purge, and those things, I don't know that yet. We'll know that in design.
But again, right now, the holding cells behind each one of those red dots is the holding cells for those courts. That big brown area, you're saying potentially and that's only on the 8th floor, or is it on all the floors?
Just on the 8th floor. It's where the attorneys and the inmates could meet privately. That's one of their problems, is to meet privately, and this could help solve the problem. It's only on one floor, Judge, but at least the felony judges thought it was a good idea. They were willing to give up a courtroom to do it.
And so within that space, then what you're saying is it's still going to be, you're lining out approximately 8 potential private areas?
That's correct.
And it would be it's going to be up to the sheriff, the defense bar, and the judges to determine how that area is going to be monitored and staffed and everything.
Yes, sir.
And conceivably, what we could have is the sheriff or the judges wanting a secure officer in each one of those rooms to monitor that prisoner, or at least to be able to watch in while that prisoner's communicating with their
I think it lends itself for additional staff.
And what happens right now? How is that working out right now?
That's the problem, Judge. They have to sit on, they've got these benches in these holding areas, and they've got many inmates in there, and it's difficult for an attorney and a client to have a private conversation, to sign papers, and really get one-on-one correspondence with each other with all the goings-on in the holding cell.
Is that going to be meeting the volume? You only have...
Well, we don't have any today, Commissioner. That's so 8's better than 0, and
But 8 can also lead to 16.
that's true. Now, they were willing to give up this courtroom. Now, whether or not they're willing to give up another, I don't know. But we thought we'd try this. Now, of course, this is again, the initial planning stage, not designed. It may not, it's 8 now, it could be 6, could be 4. It depends once we get into it and decide how long the inmates are going to stay in there, and that triggers a lot of jail standards issues or not. And it depends on how we're going to manage, the sheriff's office is going to manage those people.
Currently, we have 10 felony criminal courts.
That's correct.
I just throw something in. But it hasn't been that long ago that I was doing this, and I just checked with Greg, and the thought is that that room is not going to be for those docket call meetings, but occasionally a client and a lawyer need to be able to get in a room and look at evidence. And what we do now is schedule those when the courtrooms are closed and shut the courtroom down so they can do it. This will enable, like if a case is going to trial and the attorney and the client need to spend more time and actually look at some things, this will give them a location to actually spend that time without the attorney trying to wait for one of these tiny rooms over in the jail. So it'll actually give them some time and some space to go through the evidence and do more intensive preparation as opposed to just sign these papers. And Greg, isn't that what you're?
Yes. The purpose.
Well, he just said that.
No, what I'm looking is that, I guess my concern is we're going to be taking somebody, it's going to be a bailiff or someone is going to have to escort that prisoner from potentially the 7th floor, because where are your felony courts?
Well, we don't know that. It'll be up to the judges to depend on where they land. A lot of them have to move because of these. We're using all the small courtrooms, so I don't know that yet.
Though, we could potentially be moving. Now we're talking about moving a prisoner from a court on some other floor or a holding cell on some other floor up to this area, and in all likelihood, and I mean I understand we don't have anything right now, but we're potentially then talking about an extra bailiff that is going to have to be available to move that person up, to hold their hand until such time as that conference is over, and then to bring them back down either to the jail or to the holding cell.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Something like that be done in that, we're turning the kitchen into that court holding area. Can you not
I don't think we're going to put public down in the tunnel.
That's to bring up the case that Judge Wilson brought up in terms of privacy. That's going to be that problem times 10. That's going to be a giant factor.
Yeah.
So if you're talking about private conversations, that is going to be not going to be the space for that.
Would those private conversations normally be known to occur the day before they start, or I mean, is it going to be? Is it something that?
What would happen now is the defense attorney would call the bailiffs, see when there was an afternoon or a couple of hours when the courtroom wasn't being used. They'd pull the prisoner, bring him to court, they'd lock the court down, and the bailiff and the defense attorney and the defendant would be sitting in court looking at videos. Remember all the digital stuff we've got now? Being able to review all that and go through boxes of evidence, whatever they have.
So I guess, and maybe that last point changed what I was fixing to say, but up until you said all the evidence, then it would have seemed to me like that if we built out, if you know ahead of time when this is going to happen, if you built out the space down in the kitchen holding area where they could be pulled out, brought there, put into a place there, and then the attorney could come down and visit with them, that all goes fine except for the fact that the evidence may not be down there. You'd have to bring the evidence down there. The evidence in all likelihood is going to be in the court area?
No, it'll be with the defense attorney or it'll be with the DA's office. And they'll primarily have it on their computer.
So
What I
it goes
understand-
back to the fact that the defense attorney, if they have it on their computers, then you could build all that holding area out down near the big holding cells. They could be housed there, and then when the attorney gets there, they could be pulled out, put in one of those rooms where you still have the guards down there anyway, and we're not creating another unsecured area up on the 8th level that we're going to have security at any time someone decides to come up and have this kind of a visit.
And then you could, going off what you said, then you could actually put 2 more courts on that, make that a courtroom, make those 2 courts just like everything else.
I
think one thing we need to be
Or at least
sensitive
one
of
courtroom.
is with the sheriff's department, because we started introducing a number of attorneys actually getting into the secure area of their staging area where they're going to have inmates moving back and forth that are not going to be supervised on a one-to-one basis.
Yeah, I don't really see, you access that area by the tunnel, and I certainly don't want to speak for the sheriff's office, but I've been in there many times, and I don't know if they're going to be fired up about putting a bunch of public people down the tunnel.
Show me where the tunnel comes through to this building.
Basement.
These ends.
It's those pink, yeah, you see that little,
So what's in that section of, that little gray area right?
All of this. These are mechanical.
that's all the air handlers and chillers and stuff.
And in the blue and
The magistrates' chambers and offices space, magistrate court, holding cells here.
well, again, I'm just,
Yes, sir, I've
hear
got,
what I'm saying, and I think we're making a mistake putting that up on the 8th floor and having to especially if it's not just oh, wait a minute, I need to speak to my client about something. If it's pretty much we know when it's going to happen and we know, then I'm not sure why we're moving the prisoners up there and creating almost a new holding cell area when if we had it down there in the kitchen area, we don't have to provide more guards. We've got them there, and they're just going to have to move them over to a particular area. And I would just ask that that we work with the sheriff's office and see what their feelings are about the attorneys maybe not entering into that holding cell deal, but someplace other than up on the 8th floor.
I'll ask.
I'd like to interject. What's important to the judges in the survey will dictate that is that having these private meeting rooms in a secure area was very important to the judges because of that consultation, because you're dealing with people that are having to make decisions about the consequences of their plea or whether to go to trial and what the evidence and so forth. And so to the judges, it was very important, however it's handled, is that these private meeting rooms are available because that is something that's tremendously lacking.
And again, my question was, is that something that occurs at the time of trial or at the time of the beginning of the trial, or is it something that could occur the day before?
Most of the time it can happen the day before or right before trial. The issue is right now is that we don't have them, and so everything that we do is we work around the fact that we don't have them by closing down the courtrooms and so forth. So through docket management, all these things can be planned, and so that you know where things are. So
I think we've beat it to death. I think we've got a concept, and so if y'all can talk with the judges and with the sheriff's office, that would be appreciated.
Okay. Level 9, top level of the building, is district attorney's space, all through the dark gray. Court of Appeals would move to the new civil courts building. The new elevators here. And then with that, I'll pass it on to Kurt. Let's talk about the 350 building.
Sharon, where are the investigators, DA's office?
You know, some of them are in
They're in the
senior
old
labs
building.
at the Plaza, right? For the DA investigators that,
It will be.
and all that's gonna be over there. They've started to build out, right?
No, I think we're going to start here in a month or so.
Okay.
But you still have some there on the corner, don't you?
Some will still be in the main building. And you know, that's when we talked about this and really, I don't know where we're going to be. You know, the layout that you have has the offices in a certain format that I don't necessarily know is the best, because I think we actually need to talk to the employees and see what they think should be near each other. Optimum, of course, would be for the DA's office to be on adjoining floors, so that, because, you know, they're mostly young and healthy, they can run up and down from one floor to the other as opposed to catching elevators and all that.
county
But-
commissioners. Speak for
You
yourself.
know, the whole idea is them being able to get from one group to the other, so that the felony lawyers could, if the misdemeanor lawyer had a question, they could get to a felony lawyer, that kind of thing, that interaction, that the ease of management if they were closer together. We'll work with whatever you give us. I don't know that, my guess is this office layout is not gonna be that way. Because we've gotta see what we have and who needs to be near each other and those kinds of things.
What you're saying is you would like it if all your floors were right together. Even in this diagram that we did right here, they're spread among 3, 4, and 9.
Yes, sir.
Those on 4 that are gonna go up to 9. Put your younger ones on 3 and 4. Because that one, the older ones can walk down and the younger ones can walk up.
And you're gonna have a new elevator bank, so it's not gonna be as serious. Let me suggest that with the new elevator bank, especially with the idea that the jurors are gonna be riding it also, it would probably be wise to designate one of those elevators for assistant DAs or DA staff, so that they wouldn't be riding the elevators with the jurors. That has been a problem in the past, because they need to be separate.
All right, so this photo shows the existing Belknap buildings. This is 200 Belknap, 300 West Belknap, and 350 West Belknap, just kind of showing you what you currently have. This is what it would look like after the 300 Belknap building is demolished. You'd have space between the 200 Belknap and the 350 Belknap. This building is basically being readied for future use. So that's what the 200 Belknap is. A big idea here was that the CSCD has a lot of people that currently come and drop people off, and they're always parking, just stopping on Belknap Street to drop people off. So it would be very helpful if we had a turn-in, some kind of a turn-in, temporary parking area for people to get out, and the new CSCD will be in this building here. So this shows a new front entrance on the building, basically located right there, and then so it would work really well to have a new drop-off for that building. It would get a lot of that traffic off of Belknap that currently slows things down along there. That's just a rendering of what that building might look like in the future. Trying to add, we're changing the entrance, moving it over here so that it has better access. This entrance here is all steps right now. We're proposing that would close off, and this would be an ADA compliant entrance for the building, and everyone would come through that entrance there regarding the public entrance. This is in plan. It shows the 350 West Belknap building, and then this is that one option for what that drop-off might look like and how it would work. You drive in off Belknap, drop people off. There are a few parking stalls there, and then you would exit back out onto West Belknap. Also, there would be a connection here to the 200 West Belknap building as well. Getting into the 350 West Belknap building, the basement level or the lowest level of the building, really the only thing we're doing down here is designating some space for Sheriff Inmate Industries. That is space that was requested when we discussed this with Chief Knowles and his group, and so that's what that space would be. The rest of these areas we're not planning to do anything with.
Before you move on to that, just to point out, the brown area is what the city of Fort Worth currently uses. That's their, to your left, where it says City of Fort Worth, that's the Sally Port, and that's the holding area for jails, and also where they magistrate their inmates.
Okay.
Are you planning to take over that building?
That would be a possibility. We would own the building itself, and we would lease that back to the city, especially if they keep their contract with Mansfield.
Will that allow our employees to be able to access that building on their way through to the courts building?
Yes, because that access that from the from the parking garage is not on this floor. It's on another floor.
Okay. Then on level 1, which is your main level off the street, this is the, like I said, the new public entrance. We would have queuing space here, so as people come in off the street, they would wait here until they go through security screening. We'll have security screening to the building located right here, and then this is public lobby area. These are the public elevators. Those are existing elevators, and we have included money in David's budget to upgrade those. They need a little work. The big pieces on the main level, we have the JP Court located here. So we've taken Precinct 5 Court and made it more comparable to the size of your other JP Courts that you have. So that's what this space is, along with the judicial chambers for the JP Court. This is constable space here for constable for Precinct 5. Over here we have some CSCD support spaces, a training room, UA analysis space over here with some waiting area for that. So the nice thing about this location is people will come directly in off the street. If they're coming here just for that purpose, which they have a lot of, they don't have to circulate up into the building. They can come do their UA test and then get back out of the building and go on their way. So that's a great location for that. We also have a small sheriff's space here for the people that will be running the screening station in the building.
So there's a small holding area for those folks who are going to get to stay with us after their UA?
No, it's not. You got to go up. Yeah. Up 2 more.
What were you asking? I'm sorry.
Connects over to the Sky Bridge, to the garage. I think it's on the 3rd floor.
Oh, okay.
I think it's that floor there.
It is that floor.
Okay.
It just isn't
show
shown. It would be right there.
You could go there on the Sky Bridge over to the garage, or you could go in the back on the 1st floor.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Level 2 is all CSCD space. They have a big group of people currently in the 200 building, so all those people will be moving over here to 350. And so this is, we're adding a public stair into the building, which will really help keep a lot of traffic off of the public elevators. This is just going from level 1 up to level 2. So we're opening that up, and that, like I said, will be a great way to keep people, all those people off the elevators. There's a lot of traffic that comes, that will be coming into this building that currently go to 200 West Belknap. And so we have a waiting area here, a front desk area, and then all the officers and meeting people that will be meeting with the people that are coming to the building. And then level 3 is a lot of the same. It's all CSCD space, and the people we put on this level would be visited less from visitors, so there's a little less need to continue that open stair up to this level.
What do the red lines indicate?
Those are all areas that are being renovated, so really this whole floor gets renovated. And then level 4, we have some future space for CSCD. In our space program, we evaluated and looked at how much space they would need in the next 20 to 25 years. And so, this space doesn't need to be built out right now, but it is space there for the future if and when they need that. And then also we have a small amount of court program space here, mental health court program, vet court program, YODA, clinical case manager space. So that's court program space up here on level 4. That's really the only space that will be initially built out. Other things we're doing in this building, we're upgrading all the restrooms, the public restrooms, to ADA compliance as well. So that'll be another one of the big things that currently it doesn't have.
Thanks, Kurt. The improvements to the Tim Curry building and the Belknap Street buildings will cost $98.5 million over 6 years. Now, the Tim Curry project lends itself to be a multi-phased, multi-year project because we'll be working in an operating courts facility where we need to keep the support departments like the district clerk and county clerk in the building while we're doing renovations. So we'll be renovating a space, and we'll be moving. And we'll be renovating another space and moving, and so on. I know the county clerk gets to move it 2 or 3 times in this scenario. So it is an issue. Now, with regard to the Belknap buildings, we'll spend the first year with design of the 350 building. Then we'll move the Justice of the Peace Precinct 5 from 350 over to 300 temporarily. Then we'll renovate 350 on the interior. Then we'll move everybody from 200 and 300 into 350. Then we'll rework the utilities behind 200 and 300 because they're all tied together in the back. That's where our fiber optics networks come through for our downtown network. After that's done, we'll be abating the asbestos, about $1.5 million worth of asbestos, in the 300 building. And once that's done, we'll sever the sky bridges that connect 200, 300, and 350 all together. And that's done, we'll demolish 300. And once that's done, we'll rebuild the exterior to 200. And when that's complete, or as is completing, we'll build the drop-off that you saw where 300 used to be. All that's going to take quite a bit of time. Now, as part of the master plan, we intend to move the Court of Appeals from the 9th floor of the Tim Curry building over to the Tom Vandergrift Civil Courts building. Also, you'll see in our project schedule, which I've got you a big copy of. If you'd like to get a copy, you're certainly welcome to it. We've got the sheriff's office. We have to move their property room out of 300. Now, we have on this sheet to move it to the resource connection. The only reason we have that is because the sheriff's office already has their narcotics unit out at resource connection, and they are the biggest and highest user of the property room. Now, don't have to move it to resource connection. We have options. We can move it to Kimbo Road. We own 40 acres out there at Kimbo Road. I'm a little hesitant about pinning it down just yet because we don't have a site master plan for that 40 acres yet for the juvenile project. We just need to make sure wherever we decide to put a sheriff's property room that it doesn't interfere with juvenile operations. If we do that, we'll probably need to move the narcotics staff, well, just a few of them, narcotics staff out to there too for efficiency reasons. Now, also, I have an Excel spreadsheet, which I think most of you folks have seen. Basically, it lists all of the activities by fiscal year and the dollar figures with that. Now, we have $2.1 million available in today's budget in FY14 that the court approved for 350. Last week, you tentatively approved $1.6 million for design of 350. Also, last week, you approved $500,000 for initial design of the Tim Curry Criminal Justice Center elevator tower and the improvements for Lamar Street, which we'll need to get started on so we can work with the city to get that purchased. Now, as I mentioned, we've been working up to this day for 9 years. I think we now have a plan to better utilize the Tim Curry building for the future for the benefit and future growth of the criminal courts and the departments in the building. Also, we have a plan to address the many needs that we have with the Belknap Street buildings. So I'd like to thank and commend Kurt and Tommy and the rest of the HOK staff for doing a great job for us. I'd like to thank Tracy Pilley for organizing and keeping all this space planning effort for the last 6 months, 7 months on track, and it's been a challenge. And I'd like to thank the criminal judges and the departments for being team players. They certainly have worked with us in a very positive fashion. There's always going to be issues when you try to renovate an existing building and try to make it work for another 25 years. And this one's not perfect, but it's close. That's all we have as far as a formal presentation this afternoon. We appreciate your time, and if you have questions, we're here.
How inconvenient is it going to be to have that property room away from the main campus?
It is inconvenient. However, I've talked with the sheriff's office several times about it, and they do have a little bit of slice of space on their 6th floor in their current offices in the Plaza building. They may have a little, as far as making a little space for a little temporary space for property, things that may come up from time to time, but they will make their main property room at a resource connection.
How many
It's
square feet are we talking about?
15,000. They currently have about 9 or so.
Could you proceed back on this until you get to the aerial view of the drop-off area? Keep going. Right there. That space between 350 and 200 that is back behind the circle, around the parking area?
That's parking, wait, right here. That's, this is a fire lane, Judge, and this is parking. If the city of Fort Worth continues to use this Sally Port and holding area, they'll need that parking.
But what if we were to build a structure there that was parking as well as property room?
Parking structure?
Well,
There's
parking and/or property room.
I don't think there's enough footprint for a parking structure with ramps. With ramps.
Well, if you had, but no, let's not even say it was
Okay.
lower level. Go back to the one where that one right there. That's a parking structure to both the front and the back of that area. So if you were to make and just connect those parking areas, you wouldn't need ramps, because they would be coming in from the other area. You would have to have, the fire lanes would have to remain in there. The bottom floors could actually be your property room, and the upper floors could just be parking that would be connected to the current parking facilities that you have without having to have ramps to get to them. You'd get to them from wherever you access the other parking facilities from.
Okay.
I'm just saying, if we're talking about going off campus.
We're in planning. And when we start the exercise, we will go through this again. And we will come to the Commissioner's Court and provide that option as well. At least we'll look into it. And we'll talk.
Spend a whole lot of money looking into it, but I'm just saying.
I see what you're saying. It's tight over there. This footprint, it's kind of hard to tell. It's about 20,000 square feet. It's not.
And I really like the drop. I mean, I like that area an awful lot, the way you've got that.
There's elevation changes too, Judge. You can't see it here, of course, but this will be much lower. This right here will be on retaining walls. It'll be much higher elevation because it drops off dramatically with a slope in the back. Now, so they won't be connected in any way. We'll keep the fire lane because we do have to have that now. For the fire department, and we'll look into that. We'll look at all the options about placing. I'm sure we're going to go through the exercise about where a property room might be best. We've looked at Cold Springs in the past. Kimbo Roads is half the distance than Resource Connection is from downtown. It's a great place. But I've talked with the Sheriff's Office quite extensively over the last 2 or 3 months, and they've really warmed up to the Resource Connection because they already have a presence out there. Of course, that presence could change, and things do change. So we would have to go through a complete design exercise, which will be much more detailed.
Say how many square feet the 350 West Belknap building is?
It's about 88,000 that we're touching.
That's the total amount for that building?
Oh, I'll have to get that. I don't have it with me, Sharon.
4 additional floors on the top.
And it's got 5, 6, 7, 8 on top for jail. Now, when we renovate, we're going to ask the JP to move out, and we're going to have to totally gut those office floors, and we're going to have to make provisions for the Fort Worth PD to operate, and for jail. So it can be done. There's utilities tied back in the back. We've got generators, original generators that tie in 300 and 350 together. They used to be in the 300 used to be the dispatch room. So all that's kind of tied back together. There's only one gas meter. There's a big diesel underground storage tank back there about that far from the foundation. It's going to be a challenge. There's no question. It's going to take time to do it.
Any other questions?
How many square feet did you have reserved for CSCD on that floor that you're not going to build out?
There's half of the floor, Commissioner, and half a floor is about 9,500 square feet.
that's what you're looking for evidence storage? 99,000?
I think is what he's got right now. I think you said he was looking for 50.
We're looking for 15. They have about 9 today. It's kind of mismatched.
There's about 11,000.
Is there? And that's getting to it with the property, and that's an option we can certainly look at.
Can you go back to that floor?
Right here. If we had freight elevators and things, that'd be great, and the access would be a good idea, but I don't know. They keep a lot of things up there in their property room, and I don't like to go down there. And
Not parts, but things.
they keep a lot of things, and it's not good. It's just not a good place to hang out. It's not.
Especially when the ventilation doesn't work quite
Yeah,
right.
it's give you a headache. So we can certainly look at that too. But that would be expansion space for we don't have it marked for anybody. You know, right now we don't really have an expansion space for CSCD. They're losing 10,000 square feet. We don't have any. You notice there's not any little hatched areas. I mean, they're going to fill it up for the most part. For the most part, we kind of painted this light purple for them, but it could go for just about anything. I know CSCD is they're on board. They drank the Kool-Aid. They're ready.
Yeah, well, look where they're coming from.
Yeah, they're ready.
It's a huge upgrade for them.
David, and we didn't go over a whole lot of that, but on the repairs on 200, the brick masonry repairs, do those actually get repaired and they look like they're complete fixed, or is it just a patch? Get them in a little closer.
I hate to use the word patch. We're not replacing all the brick. We're going to replace a percentage, a fraction of the brick, 10 to 20%. That's where the cracks are at. And we're replacing a fraction of the terracotta. Then we're going to repair the exterior of some of the terracotta, clay tile, fiery clay tile. And so, because we looked into it, if we had to repair it, replace it all, it would be much more than $8 million.
And I'm assuming every brick we put back in, we're going to anchor the wall in hopes that it'll hold the other bricks that are not anchored to the wall?
We're going to actually come in here. We're going to come in here. There's some missing brick angles along that edge and the top. They're going to, and we did this with the Southwest Sub Courthouse back after we opened it. We had some flashing problems and some leaks getting inside the building. So we take out a section of brick, and then you put a steel angle, be stainless steel angle, and bolt it back to the structure. Then you fill it in. Then you do another section, fill it in, and put flashings and all those kind of waterproofing things back there. But we'll have, that way when they finish, all the brick will be supported like it's supposed to be supported with steel brick angles fastened to the superstructure. Now, what we're going to be doing is all the little edges around they're all cracking, and most of those are going to get replaced with brick that's going to have to match. And I had a long heart-to-heart meeting with those engineers. Those cladding distress engineers came up from Austin and met for several hours. They met with me and Hart Wyman, who's very passionate about this thing, and it was a difficult meeting. But we came out to the solution that we don't have to change out all the brick. We'll change out all the windows, all the window framing, the lintels, and all that it needs to be. We had one pop on us a few years ago. They're moving, and we'll be able to take that exterior cladding and properly fasten it and provide expansion joints in that cladding. Change all the windows out. The parapet wall, the white wall you see there, is leaning. That's not good. We're going to take some rods in, and they said they've done this in a couple of buildings, and it's worked well. They're going to take rods every few feet and go down, big steel rods, and go down into the superstructure and hold it together, keep it from moving anymore. Because the option is to replace it, and that's lots of money.
It's leaning, not leaning.
It's leaning out. It's been that way decades, Judge, because it's got some steel bars, braces on there that's had for long before I showed up. That's my story.
And you're sticking to it?
My
I
story.
would like to see us buy a for sale sign.
The interior, the part of the 98.5 million I mentioned, it doesn't include any work on the interior. And the reason it does not, because we don't have a use for it right now, at least something I haven't identified a use for it today. Now, it's got to have about 42,000 square feet of space on the inside. If it was renovated, it had to be completely gutted. We would shave off the elevator in the back that's there now, and we'd make it like a real office building. It'd have elevators on the inside. It'd have restrooms on the inside,
Yeah, that'd be nice.
which it doesn't now. You have to go to the next building over. It'd have stairwells,
No restrooms in that building?
little singles, except for I think in the basement they've got a two-holder, but that's about it. That's why we have those. We can't leave anybody in 200 if we take 300 down, because it won't have two egresses anymore. It won't have public restrooms. We'll have to put stairwells on the inside of the building, which would be nice.
I kind of agree with Commissioner Johnson. We put a big old for sale sign out in front of that thing for a while. At least until you get the plans drawn as to what we might do with it.
I'll tell you the one thing about this, Judge, this will be one of the last things we do. Because as I mentioned, we have to we have to renovate 350 and move and demo 300 and all that. Touching the exterior, touching 200 will be one of the last things we do, and that won't happen for several years from now. So you have plenty of time to think about it.
Depends on how much you vibrate that area with.
That's true.
Tear down to
We could
300.
ask them to. We could take turns on the.
Grow a gas well there.
Yeah. But I'm sure there'll be a lot of comments and a lot of planning between now and the time we get ready to ask you for money to do something with it, which will be several
Which kind
years.
of brings me to a point that we're getting, with the $98 million price tag, I think we're getting awful close to a number that we ought to be seeking some. I personally think we ought to be getting real close to seeking some citizen approval on before we spend $100 million. Something like that. And I realize it's 3 buildings. I realize it's over 6 years, or really it's over 8 years. No, I guess 6.
6.
But 25, 30, 40, maybe even is one thing, but we're getting real close to $100 million. And that's just kind of that's not a key number. It's just one in my own mind that says we need to go out for a bond issue if we're going to do something like that.
Judge and David, is your 6-year time frame predicated on the allocation of capital over 6 years, where if we did go out for a bond issue, it would be done quicker?
4.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah. The schedule has some predecessors and things and triggers, and if I took these out where the funding had to be required before you start some things, yes, it would get down to 4.
Is that going to is that going to require us to do COs at some point in there?
It might. I mean, what is this year? We look at $30 million is the max this year, which is a high for us. And while we're taking care of a lot of building needs, I can't believe that paying will be the right deal. Those are the two biggest issues of it.
Or we can cut $15 to $20 million from our annual operating budget, and in 6 years we'll have enough money to pay for it. That's an option as well. Starting with the budget director's office.
I won't quite get us there.
There's not many bodies over there now.
I just wonder, I mean, again, back to the discussion of the possibility of a bond issue. I think I could see us in the next couple of years looking at another transportation issue. So, I mean, I think we could have 2 or 3. I mean, if we put transportation on there, I don't know if there's anything else, but it is at least something that I'd like for us to think about, or maybe from your master plan over the next 5, 6 years, what else do you have in your
I've got it.
Is that on the agenda?
It has these buildings in it.
Kind of told me that I might be asking that question.
Now, this represents, last year I gave the Commissioners Court a book for the master plan, the space master plan, and this essentially has that same information. And what it is, it lists some of all the things that I know have to do with space, renovation or new space, or alterations. This is not deferred maintenance or any type of maintenance on buildings. So I took a stab at some of the things I really don't know much about yet. Essentially like an elections building. We've talked about years about adding on to the elections for their storage and maintenance of their equipment. Also, Northeast Annex. I took a stab at what that might be if JPS moves out in a few years when the lease expires. If they move out, how we might do something with the building. So the numbers you see are numbers that would probably touch all the space in the building. For instance, Southeast Annex building on 724 East Border on the second page, I took a stab at that because we have plans to, or drawing sketches to demolish the building out there, the old sub-courthouse, and CSCD still has some staff out there. We would essentially take that building down and build a larger building, about 32,000 square feet, to expand for CSCD. They've told me many times they certainly could use more space out there. They have a lot of customers. Also, Juvenile has wanted some space in Arlington. They wanted some places to go out there. Also, back in 2008, we looked at a disaster recovery center and mirror site for IT. So $11 million might do all that on 724 East Border. So I put all that in, not knowing, just knowing that the judge would want this. This is probably a worst case, and it came to about $150 million. That's all I could come up with that I know of as far as space over the next 5 years.
So does the $98 million
Is included.
It's included with that?
Yeah. So we'd have $50 million worth of other things to do with other properties and so on and so forth.
But it doesn't include the money that we already have with our capital improvement program that was approved, but we haven't sold yet.
That's correct. It does not. That number at the bottom does not include the right column, which is the 2006 CIP. That's for the juvenile services, and we yet to move forward. We're still working on the final design of the court holding for the sheriff's office in the corrections center. Another thing that's on here, GK, is possibly moving the carpenter shop. You know, eventually, the Trinity River Division is going to take off like a rocket, and I think they're going to be knocking on our door and wanting us to move. So this has some cost in here for building them a like space and for the bus barn, which is out there too for the sheriff. They have a bus barn out there.
That should be something that would be, they ask us to move, they're going to have to move us. Or at least they've had to move everybody, other businesses.
We have a building, our carpenter shop out there, and we have to replicate that space somewhere else at Kimbo or Resource or somewhere. So I put $2.5 million to do that.
That would probably be revenue neutral, though.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, because in all likelihood, we put it on land that we already own. They'd have to pay us for the land and the cost of the building and relocation. And so I would think that would be revenue.
So I think this is the outside number, at least for the information I have today, Judge.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions or discussion at this point in time?
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other business to conduct at this time? If not, we're adjourned.